Friends, let me share a story from the year 1869. A Harvard graduate was going through a severe crisis of meaning in his life. According to him, there was nothing left worth living for, no meaning, no purpose. All he had was an overwhelming amount of anxiety and depression. He frequently suffered random panic attacks and hallucinations. Things had escalated to the point where he decided to take his own life, following the same tragic path his father had taken. But one day, this man was reading an essay by the philosopher Charles Renouvier on free will. After reading it, he wrote in his journal, "I think the crisis has passed. There is no reason to think of free will as an illusion. In fact, my first act of free will shall be to believe in free will." Years later, this one thought became the foundation of pragmatism. Pragmatism is a philosophical idea that says we can control and change what we think by the way we approach it. Simply by changing how you think, you can transform your entire life. The man who gave birth to this idea was William James. A man who was once on the verge of suicide is now regarded as the father of American psychology. So, what is so powerful about this idea? How can you apply it to your own life? And how can you master the skill of thinking clearly and rationally, even in the midst of mental chaos? You'll learn all this straight from Darius Foro's book, Think Straight. Darius has studied pragmatism, applied it to his own life, and experienced a complete transformation. If you're ready to change your life, drop a comment saying, "I'm ready," because friends, life is about to take a turn for the better. In another part of the story, Darius shares his struggles. He grew up with the dream of one day living in a big city. When he finally got the chance, he didn't let it slip away. In 2014, he moved to London. But anyone who moves from a small town to a big city knows how overwhelming it can be. So many people, polluted air, sky-high living costs, inequality, and countless other challenges. For months after arriving in London, he lived in a rented apartment while searching for a permanent home. After 2 months, he finally found a place and thought, "At last, I'll have my own space to live peacefully on my own terms." He packed up all his belongings, left his rented apartment, and set off to move into his new home. But on the way, his landlord called and informed him that the apartment was no longer available. To make things worse, the landlord of the rented apartment he had just left refused to let him move back. With all his belongings, furniture, TV, everything, packed in a van, Darius, along with his parents and brother, found himself wandering through the chaotic streets of London. Where could they go? There were no options, no answers. Imagine how mentally exhausting that day must have been for him. He spent the day arguing with his landlord, blaming the situation and regretting his choices. Friends, this is just the beginning of Darius's story. How he overcame such challenges and transformed his life is a journey worth exploring. So, are you ready to learn the life-changing philosophy of pragmatism and apply it to your own life? If yes, let's begin. A young man had moved to a big city full of dreams and aspirations, but life didn't unfold as he expected. The bustling chaos of the city, overcrowded streets, polluted air, high living expenses, and stark inequalities was overwhelming. For months, he rented a place while searching for a permanent home. Finally, he found one, and he felt relieved, thinking he'd have a personal space to live peacefully. But on the day of moving in, the landlord called and backed out of the agreement. To make matters worse, his previous landlord had already refused to let him return. All his belongings, furniture, appliances, and other essentials were packed in a rented truck, and he was left stranded in the crowded streets of London with no place to go. He roamed around with his family, feeling helpless and mentally exhausted, unable to think of a solution. Eventually, they found a hotel to spend the night. The day had been so mentally draining that it pushed him into a state of despair. His parents scolded him gently, urging him to let go of what had already happened and focus on the future. That night, as he lay in bed, he resolved to think clearly. When morning came, he told himself, "Think straight." With this shift in mindset, he began to analyze the situation logically. The simplest solution came to him: book an Airbnb for a week and search for another apartment. He acted immediately, and within that week, the landlord who had previously refused contacted him, ready to rent the apartment. Reflecting on the incident, he realized that when he was wandering the streets of London, consumed by stress and self-blame, booking an Airbnb could have been an obvious solution, but his cluttered mind didn't allow him to think of it. Instead, he had wasted time on unnecessary thoughts and worries. This moment taught him a powerful lesson. Many of our thoughts are completely useless. Regrets about the past, anxiety about the future, and what-ifs only serve to trap us in a cycle of stress. Thoughts like, "What if I had invested there?" Or, "What if I hadn't bought that car?" lead nowhere. These are unproductive thoughts with no real purpose. Instead, we should focus on constructive thinking, thoughts that lead to solutions and tangible results. The philosophy of pragmatism emphasizes this. While we cannot stop thoughts from entering our minds, we can choose which ones to focus on and which to let go of. This is the key to controlling your mind and developing straight thinking. Whenever a thought arises, ask yourself, "Will this help solve my problem?" If not, let it go and focus on the next thought. But often, letting go of certain thoughts isn't easy. Some carry heavy emotional weight that ties us to them. This is why the second important lesson is, don't judge your thoughts, accept them. When something bad happens, a loss, a breakup, or failure, most people react emotionally. At first, they struggle to accept the situation. They try to blame someone else for their pain, feeling stuck in a pendulum of past regrets and future worries. This constant stress and anxiety worsen their state of mind. Most of us react this way. However, the better response is to start by accepting the situation. Yes, something bad has happened. Yes, emotions will arise. But when you feel stressed or anxious about something, the first step is to ask yourself, can I change this situation? Can I improve it or get out of it? Once you identify the answer, take action in the present moment. Avoid making elaborate future plans about what you might do later. Instead, focus on what you can do right now to move forward. Most of us make the mistake of becoming obsessed with our goals. We spend so much time overthinking the what-ifs. What if I succeed? What if I fail? That we lose sight of the small challenges we must address to achieve those goals. It's like climbing a mountain. If your focus is solely on reaching the peak by tomorrow, you'll fail to address the obstacles you encounter today. You'll neither overcome them nor enjoy the journey. So, remember this. Keep the goal in sight, but focus on the journey. Pay attention to the steps you're taking now. Both the past and the future exist only in your mind. Overthinking them will only distract you from the present, which is the only thing that's real. In every aspect of life, self-development, career, relationships, what matters most isn't what you've done or what you plan to do. It's what you're doing right now. Accept your present situation, whether good or bad. Don't let your thoughts dominate you. Instead, think about how you can improve your life in this very moment. This brings us to an essential point. Know when you're overthinking and how to stop it. For example, let's say your boss casually tells you on Friday, "We need to talk on Monday." Over the entire weekend, you're consumed with anxiety, wondering, what could it be? Did I make a mistake? Is my job in danger? You think about it day and night, even though there's nothing you can do in the present to resolve it. When you're overthinking, you'll notice 3 key signs. Repetition. You get stuck in a mental loop, thinking about the same thing over and over in different ways. For instance, if a friend or partner made a hurtful comment, you might repeatedly think, why did they say that? They always treat me like this. I shouldn't have let it slide. Next time I'll say something back. This cycle never ends. Lack of progress. Despite thinking so much, you fail to arrive at any solutions. Your mind simply wanders, considering all possibilities, but never focusing on actionable steps. Unhappiness. Overthinking makes you feel worse. It doesn't provide relief or clarity. Instead, it drains your energy and leaves you feeling stuck. We treat overthinking as a problem because overthinking can harm us in many ways. It lowers our self-esteem, damages our confidence, and fills our life with negativity. Whenever you notice these three things happening, understand that you are overthinking. But the question is, how can you stop it? Here's one effective technique: worry postponement. When something bad happens and you find yourself constantly thinking about it, it's not something you're doing intentionally. In fact, you may even tell yourself to stop, but the same thoughts keep coming back. This happens because the truth is, you cannot control your thoughts. Think of your thoughts like cars driving on a busy road. You can't stop them from coming and going. However, you can act as the traffic light that manages the flow, ensuring your mind doesn't get stuck in a mental traffic jam. Here's how to do it. Whenever you catch yourself overthinking, tell yourself, I will think about this later. Set a specific time in the future to revisit the thought. For instance, if your boss says something that bothers you, or you've had an argument with a friend, or faced a loss that's troubling you, acknowledge your feelings and say, okay, I'm upset and overthinking, but I'll think about this at 8 p.m. Then take out your phone and set an alarm for 8 p.m. What happens next is powerful. Instead of fighting your overthinking, which is nearly impossible, you'll create a sense of peace with your feelings. When you overthink again, instead of trying to suppress your thoughts, just remind yourself, I'll think about this later, at 8 p.m. This will allow your mind to release the thought for now. Most of the time, when the alarm goes off, you'll realize you don't even remember what was bothering you so much earlier. So, my friend, if you've read this far, don't overthink. Just like this content, share it with your friends who tend to overthink and learn new ways to manage your thoughts. Finally, keep growing, keep learning, and keep striving to be better. Thank you for reading.